Hey guys, this is Double Wide 6 and I have a Honda GX160. It's a 5.5 horsepower engine and this thing has no compression, so what I'm doing is I'm taking some parts off of it to put on another engine. So this video is going to be on how to clean the carburetor. So to start, we're going to remove these two 10mm mounting bolts and we're going to pull the vacuum hose off the back of our air filter assembly. So now I'll pull those bolts. There's one, two. Alright, with the bolts or nuts removed, we can pull off our air filter assembly. Just being careful not to hit the fuel shutoff switch. And that will slip off, and now we have access to our carburetor. The carburetor is actually loose except for the fuel line. So I'm going to clamp off the fuel line and slide the fuel line off the carburetor. So I'm taking some forceps and I'm just clamping off the fuel line, and I'm going to grab a screwdriver and come in at the base of the fuel line and try and slide it up off the nipple of the carburetor inlet. There we go. And that should basically free up the carburetor except for the governor linkage. So here's your governor linkage, and all you have to do to disconnect that is push up on that. It should pop straight out like so. So I've taken a little compressed air and blew off the outside of the carburetor. Now I'm just loosening up the bowl nut, and this nut I can tell is all chewed up and stripped, so that's telling me someone's been in here before. And it doesn't look too dirty. Fuel looks a little greenish, but I don't see too much sediment or dirt. In here is our pin, so we'll slide that out, and we have our float, which looks good. It's plastic, and you can see the needle on there. It's hanging on the float, and the needle looks to be in pretty good shape. Now on most of these Hondas there's a jet inside that can be removed. So I'm using a screwdriver that doesn't really flare out too far on the edges, and I'm going to reach in here and just carefully seat that inside the jet and turn it counterclockwise, and that one came loose nice and easy. Sometimes they really stick. So to get the jet out, you can tap like that, and as you can see on the bench, there's one part, and then you tap again and your second part will come out. So there's two parts that need to be cleaned, and that's usually where most of the problems occur with these Honda carburetors. So I'm just going to finish up this job by spraying out all these holes with the little carb cleaner. You want to make sure you're in a well ventilated area, and you want to make sure that you have safety glasses on. Alright, and you should see carb cleaner coming out somewhere in the carburetor when you do this. So if we take a close look, you can see all these little holes. These holes get clogged up. So what I'm going to do is run a wire through each hole, making sure that they're clean. If you don't have a small wire to run through these things, what you can do is take a tie from like a bread bag or something like that and just cut the paper away and use the wire from within the tie, or cut a wire off a wire brush. Okay, I'm not going to spray carb cleaner in here. It looks real clean. I don't want to pull this gasket out because I don't have a replacement one on me, so that looks alright. I don't want the seat to swell, so I'm just going to leave everything alone. I've cleaned out this main jetway. This with the longer narrow end goes in first, so you can drop that right in the hole, and the side of this little barrel jet, main jet here, you want the flathead side sticking out so that you can put it in with a screwdriver. So I've dried everything off with compressed air. I'm just going to take our float and our needle. Our needle's going to go right in the hole there. And then we want to line up our pin. So I'm going to take the pin and it's going to go right through here and hold the float right in place. Alright, now we want to put our bowl on. You can see the bowl is nice and clean. If your bowl's not clean, you want to clean that out with a little carb cleaner. And you'll notice that there's a drain bolt. You want to face that drain bolt towards your fuel shutoff. That way it'll be in the front of the bowl, which will make it easier to drain in the future. You won't have to reach under the carburetor. When you put on your bowl nut, you want to make sure that it has the gasket on it as well. So there's a red gasket that helps that seal up. So make sure that that's there before you put on your bowl nut. I flipped over the carb. This is our choke lever. And what we're going to do is put it over the pin, and it should drop down in here like this. And you can see how that works, that butterfly. So this piece can come right off, so just be careful that you don't lose it and you get it back on right when you're done. So I mentioned the carburetor I just worked on was clean. Here'd be an example of a really dirty carburetor. This is the worst carburetor that I have ever seen in my life. You can see that this is in really bad shape. So at this point I'm ready to put my carburetor back on. So I'm just going to slip it on the mounting bolts. And we're going to hook up our governor. This should slip straight down. There we go. Now, one thing to note is this engine is an old piece of junk engine. It's missing the spring that goes on here. So I have to get that little tiny spring. But if you have your spring, you want to hook it into the little hole right here. Now I'm going to take my fuel line and connect it onto the fuel inlet. There is a clamp here that you can loosen up. But I'm just going to try and slip this right over that nipple. Usually they'll slide over. There we go. Now I can remove my forceps. Now we're going to put on our metal coated gasket. You want to make sure that you line that up properly, making sure that all these little half rounds show holes in the carb. So that looks good. Now we're going to slide on our air filter box. Once again, watch for the choke lever and the fuel shutoff. And a little wiggling, that should go on. And don't forget, there's a vacuum hose right here. And your vacuum hose gets hooked up to the back of the air cleaner box. So that's pretty much what you have to do to clean the carburetor on your Honda GX160 engine. It's fairly simple to do. Anybody can do it. And you might have noticed that this engine might look a little different. Has a different color gas tank. What I was doing was I was switching out some parts from one engine onto another. So if we look over here, I have another engine that had no compression, and it had a bad fuel tank that was all rusted out, and it was missing a few parts. What I've done is I've taken those two engines and I put them together to make one that hopefully works. So anyhow, I'm Double Wide 6, and hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you like small engine repair, I have a bunch of other videos on my YouTube channel under Double Wide 6. Thanks for watching.